Are you feeling burnt out with activism? Feeling sick and tired of the safetyism and sensitivity reader dynamic that is so strong in social change maker spaces? Well, then you might need to recover from anarchism. To that end, we brought on Kier of the Recovering Anarchist Substack. This episode was recorded during an all-day live stream. We call these MSTUs, which stands for Epic Marathon Stream at Theory Underground. This was prior to actually meeting Kier in real life, which did occur soon after this virtual meeting. It was really great to meet Kier in Boise, Idaho for TUCon 2024, the first time that people traveled from all over the country to get together and present their thoughts that have been stirred up by or inspired by Theory Underground. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun meeting Kier and everyone else. This episode is really special to us. Anne and I had a delightful time, and I think that if you did not catch it live, you're going to really enjoy this. Hell, even if you did catch it live, you're still going to enjoy re-listening to it. So, yeah. Before I can roll the episode, I just got to say the Theory Underground is not just a podcast or a YouTube or a Substack, but is ultimately a virtual organic organization and, very important, sort of proto-institution, or as we say, outstitution. It is a lecture course, ongoing research seminar, and book publishing platform by and for workers with earbuds who are getting into theory, who want to understand the situation, who want the good life, and are trying to get reoriented after having burnt out on academia, activism, or partying. Or in my case, all three. Listen, if you want to get more involved, stick around until the end of this video. Watch the PSA at the end. We try to make it clear how you can get involved. And also, I apologize for the website. It's not where it needs to be. It is currently being rebuilt. But with that said, you can still click get involved and become a subscriber of the ongoing research seminars and get huge discounts on upcoming courses, as well as access to a lot of the past courses at TU. So yeah, stick around to the end of the video, watch the PSA, and hope you enjoy this episode. Peace. All right, everybody, welcome back to Theory Underground. This is the Epic Marathon stream here on September 18th. We are now joined by Kier of Recovering Anarchist. How are you doing, Kier?
I'm doing great. Yeah, happy to be here.
Great to have you. Yeah. And so Anne and I have gotten to know you a little bit over the last, I don't know, few months at Theory Underground. You took an active role with Will and now Spencer, right? In taking the seminar sessions that we're doing and making those more available to people on the Substack, both as, well, Will's transcribing them and you are taking the audio and doing that. And so, I mean, that's not what we want to talk about, but it's the thing that I wanted to highlight. So thank you so much for doing that. Everybody in the chat, give it up for Kier. It really is appreciated. So thank you.
Tight, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to like be walking or doing dishes or whatever when I'm listening to stuff. So yeah, I can't sit still very well. So it's great for me too to have the audio versions.
So before we get into what it means to be a recovering anarchist, I kind of want to just first focus on the medium Substack that you have been using, that I've been using, and to shout out somebody in the actual live chat here who had just said that, I think it was Matthew of Samsara Media. He was like, yeah, Matthew Stanley said that Substack has officially rolled out a live streaming function.
Really amazing.
Yeah, so we'll hopefully be able to start restreaming to Substack and start building that way, because in a lot of ways it's a far as a platform, far superior to every other. I mean, one of the just one little tiny thing is like the notes function. Those notes don't go away. They keep getting shown to people over time. Like I'll have people liking a note that I posted, which is practically a tweet, everybody. I'll have people still liking it like 2 months later. And it's like you go on Facebook or on X or on Threads, and it's like you have to be. It's presentism all the way through. It's just like what's present, what's present, what's present, and no, there's something about repetition, and sort of like, oh, that doesn't just go away. That thing you just said, you might keep talking about it. You might kind of come back to it. People who are just joining, they'll see that for some reason, somehow with how their algorithm works. So I'm just curious what your experience has been like as a writer on
Mhm.
Substack compared to other things that you've done over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love Substack and it's been cool being on there for the past like several years because it's just improved so much. Like they're adding functions all the time. And I think like I guess what I enjoy about it is like they get paid when their writers get paid, basically, right? Because they take a cut of the paid subscriptions. So they're motivated to make it better. And so having like those interests aligned, I feel like is part of why we keep seeing improvements. Like when I first got on, there was like basically no discoverability like within Substack, and there wasn't an app even. So, you'd have to basically have a funnel somewhere else, like some other social media platform. But now, like, yeah, you can recommend other newsletters and then they get shown to your readers. And so it's just like become this really interesting ecosystem. And like you said, the notes does seem to function differently than a lot of other things where it really seems responsive and yeah, it is less it's less urgent, I feel like, than a lot of Twitter. So you end up getting shown, yeah, just really interesting stuff that way. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I feel like I've yeah just met some really interesting people through it, and yeah, I'm really happy to be there for sure.
Cool. And
Mhm.
I kind of didn't introduce you. You're here with us, and I'm curious if you have anything you would like to say before we kind of dive into the recovering anarchist topic.
Say about anything in particular, like about Substack or in general?
In general, just whatever. Yeah, whatever. Just
Yeah,
hi.
well, I guess, yeah, Dave and I, hi. With Dave and I were looking at like, oh, where should I come in on this stream? I was excited to come on here with you, Kier, because I think I kind of relate to your own story a little bit. And so I'll be excited to just hear more about kind of that journey and what it means to be a recovering anarchist. Because I was like kind of on the verge of becoming like a full-fledged SJW. And then like I kind of witnessed a sort of like personal cancellation of someone close to me, like very, very, yeah, very close. And I saw it happen just based on like kind of nothing. And that was like, okay, hold on. I don't necessarily want to get involved with those kinds of people. And so I pretty early on like got shaken out of it. But I was down that path even up until like 2020. I was, put on my Instagram, little repost warrior, little Twitter warrior, like so I'm detached from that. I'm pretty cynical about the mode. I get my jouissance from, watching conservatives dunk on the lids. I'm not afraid to admit it. But I know it's not the healthiest way to move forward. I know that you're critically thinking and having discussions about that. And so, yeah, I'm excited to just like get to know you more and your story and be here. So thank you for your time. Thanks for bringing me on again, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I mean maybe we should just kind of dive in right there. What was it that got you into politics? And what has brought you to this place of questioning where you are currently?
Yeah, politics started like very young for me. My parents are like both various degrees of lefty and like I still remember, on September 11th, 2001, I was 11. My dad sort of sat me down and basically was like, the US government is going to go in and get a bunch of oil from the Middle East, and they're going to use this as the reason why. Which I'm like, wow, like that's amazing that he told me that at that age. But he did, and like I think I did a speech in like grade 4 maybe about like the like slavery abolitionists who were working with like yeah, working to move people up to Canada basically. So that stuff kind of came into my life really early. So yeah, in high school I did some nice, kind of cringy activism. And yeah, I kind of hit the ground running once I was an adult. I volunteered and worked with Greenpeace for a time. And pretty quickly, though, the Olympics happened in Vancouver, which was like this massive, like, security situation, poverty was really affected. They, tried to basically get all the homeless people out of the city. And yeah, just all sorts of stuff. So that was kind of a bit of a radicalizing moment. And I also felt very disillusioned with Greenpeace in their response to the Olympics, because I think they congratulated Coca-Cola on their green refrigeration technology. And recently they'd been like poisoning drinking water in India. So that's when I kind of got introduced to more radical people. And 2010 was also when the G20 happened in Toronto. I was there for that, and ended up on the news, getting shot with rubber bullets by the police. So I kind of went from like this like hopeful, like I can change the world, like very chipper sort of orientation to kind of feeling like I was now seeing the world how it really was, experiencing that police violence. It's like, well, I experienced it at a summit, but some people face that every day. And yeah, I just developed like this very, very like dark and sad way of looking at the world. And so that was kind of my radicalizing year.
So don't shoot people with rubber bullets unless you want them to become radicalized into anarchism.
Basically, yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is like there was some really good like bordering on propaganda stuff, like my face when I was like getting arrested and I had this like in pain look on my face. There was like a news segment in Toronto where they were like, anarchists and thieves and criminals are running the streets, and they had like the dun 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 music going on, and it was like my face, so yeah, they really kind of played up like they tried to make it seem like the activists there were like really scary, dangerous, violent people, although there was a lot more violence coming from the police than from the protesters.
Mm. So I guess I'm kind of curious then to hear a little bit about what is wrong with anarchism and or activism currently. Like, what is the state of it? And especially, I just want to highlight the fact that Canada is, as always, on the internet, especially when it comes to political conversations, overrepresented today here at Theory Underground. We have several of you all. J-Reg was just on, Swilitariat was on, Tony from One Dime is on, all of them leftists, all of them Canadians, and they're all based out of Toronto or nearby, unlike you. They're all on the other side of the country. And it's interesting that there is such a heavy presence of Canadian influencers making political opinions as influencers. Yeah. I'm curious what you make of that, and then maybe maybe some of the problems with that scene itself have something to do. I don't know what the causal order would be, but something to do with the issues that you're seeing. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually at this anarchist gathering pretty recently in the summertime that was on this small island in BC. And it was really interesting. Like I wouldn't have gone fully of my own volition. But I had a friend who was putting on a workshop and I wanted to support that person. So I went and yeah, I was kind of bracing myself because I'm not an anarchist anymore. And I was also like, I wasn't feeling sort of the description because it was very like doomerish, right? It's like planning for the end of the world, basically, and there was a lot of that talk kind of at the gathering and honestly like some people have like a weird thrill about that, right? Like they're kind of excited for this like total collapse and I don't know, like that now like really puts me off. Like I don't know, there would just be so much suffering that would have to happen, if our, healthcare and education systems and government like were all to fall apart. Like it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. I'll go make medicine from dandelions, like so that was tough. But on the other hand, it was like everyone was like really super nice there, like really interesting, like kind-hearted people. Like everyone was like volunteering to help make things happen. And I don't know, there was no social media, like no one was taking pictures. Like it was a very like everyone was like really present there, which I appreciated as well. And I managed to like restrain myself from just yelling run at all the, young people that were there. Um, because yeah, I don't know, it's like this weird tension where like anarchists can be like the most like generous, reliable people on the planet, like willing to show up and just do what needs to be done, willing to like go into, say after a natural disaster, just like show up and help, and on the other hand, there's like such a paranoid and like pessimistic view of the world that I found pretty devastating over time. So I mean, I think the main, we need anarchists because I think that they are some of the most astute critics of the state um, and of corporatism. So, I want them around. I'm happy to, collaborate where we have overlapping interests. But at the end of the day, like I just felt like there's just this weird paradoxical like there's like this utopian thinking, right? Like the idea that we really can abolish like poverty like completely and violence and like so abolition, for example, prison abolition, like it's totally just going to work once we make these structural changes because no one's ever going to commit a crime again, right? And I feel like that sort of oversimplification of things and a lack of like a concrete vision of what to work towards. Um, that's what ultimately put me off. I think it's like, especially like in Canada in 2024, I think maybe there's certain circumstances that where like anarchist organizing is called for. But I don't think I'm going to see the government overthrown in my lifetime. And I think like our time is probably better spent doing other things.
So yeah,
So
and
can I ask, like, yeah, Dave?
oh
Yeah.
no,
So
sorry,
you,
there's a slight lag in the Zoom call, but it'll be all right. We'll be fine. And yeah, take it away.
yeah. So you painted this picture of like what the situation is and where you've been, and so like what is your approach? What is your vision? What are your politics in a sense? Like what should be done? What is to be done?
what
The
is to be done?
question.
Never heard that question before. That's a really good one. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that like I feel like that's what I'm in the process of doing, because I feel like in my early 20s I was involved in anarchism. There was a lot of like direct action, getting arrested, blah blah blah. Eventually, I kind of ended up in this more like interior like self-help social justice, where it was more about like confronting my inner isms and so on.
Mm.
And I don't know, there wasn't a lot of like actual campaigns that I was involved in um once that shift kind of happened. So yeah, I had this weird side quest, around like healing journey and like self-improvement and blah, blah, blah. Um, and so for a while I was like, well, maybe I just don't want to like do any politics at all anymore. Maybe I don't care and I should just do something completely different. But that didn't stick for very long. So I guess when I came back, I was like, wow, I'm so tired of this like social justice, like the subculture at least, am I right wing? Like, because I was also like you, and like finding some really entertaining, like stuff being put out by people on the right, making fun of like people like me, and really relating to it. But I found that like when I tried to look at like what they actually believed in, it felt like very vapid and empty. And, even with like my, change and move away from like the social justice subculture, like I still believe very strongly that we have a responsibility towards each other. I think like poverty gets very individualized in North America. And yeah, so I think like I'm tentatively, I'm considering myself a socialist, but I think like what I really want to do is like I was saying all these slogans for so many years without ever having like researched them properly, right? So it's like, I think I'm a Marxist, but I don't know yet because I'm not familiar enough with Marx. And, so I'm starting to actually read Marx so I can develop like an informed opinion on where I'm coming from. And so that's kind of my project right now. It's like, are we in late capitalism? Leftists love talking about late capital. Like, there's all this lingo that we're parroting, without necessarily having any idea what we're talking about. So I'm happy being kind of in this in between space, where I'm a socialist, and yeah, there's a lot that I want to figure out, and I kind of want to do that publicly because I think there are a lot of people that feel pretty disillusioned with the flavor of leftism that's been available to them.
On the note of doing it publicly, that's obviously the decision that I made at some point, early on in my own sort of disillusionment with the DSA and Marxism. So it's like I could be a recovering Marxist, you could be a recovering anarchist, right? But the doing it publicly part, though, for me, it's important because yeah, no, I don't just sit here and kind of speculate and kind of like work through like everything, like no, but I'm getting back to the basics. I'm doing the readings again, the ones that I thought that I did before. I'm doing them more seriously now, and also taking in a lot more perspectives than I had originally when I just kind of bracketed that all out, saying, oh no, I more or less know the approach, which I kind of loosely define as: first, it's a sort of radical anarcho-socialist communist fusionist. It's a left fusionism. I like to just say left fusionism, which is like, hey, we more or less get it. The real problem is the infighting on the left, and we more or less get it. And then coming to this, no, most of the people that I was kind of including in that we aren't, seemingly, at least the ones in positions of power or influence, they're not going for large scale structural change. And because Marxism was the only tendency that I was very familiar with outside of Nick Cernicek and Alex Williams, which isn't really a movement or a party anyway, I was just like, okay, well, Marx is, out of all the things that I was kind of fusing together in my head, it's the one thing that prioritizes the large scale structural change. And so then I got more involved with that and got involved with a Marxist chapter of the DSA that one of our friends started. And when I came back to Boise, I joined it for a while, and then we both ended up leaving at some point. Maybe Anne will want to say something about that. But I guess the point I wanted to touch on is like late capitalism. They were saying that in the 1960s. It's been a while, right? They want to talk about conservatives holding on to old things, and it's like, well, why is the left holding on to old things? Yeah, I get reading old books, but that's not the same thing as recycling slogans from the 60s as though they worked, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll just chime in really quick with like that was where Dave and I, both in our involvement on the one hand, of being kind of more on this like SJW side, and I was very much like liberal Democrat kind of left-leaning person, especially like in high school for me as well, like anti-gun walkouts, and all my teachers were like, Anne's gonna be a lawyer and change the world one day. I'm like, oh geez. So on the one hand, we were seeing that, and then like in this Marxist organization, for example, we were thinking, oh, we're going to be doing something new. We're going to be trying to reach, a broad array of people, conservative and liberal alike. And then, yeah, it just ended up being like more or less a bunch of dude bros who wanted to pretend like we were in 1917 Russia, Soviet Union, and kind of almost cosplay that spirit. And so we got disillusioned there as well. So even if you're not necessarily doing the like identity kind of SJW mode of leftism, it seemed like those were the options. You're either like not reading anything past like Lenin or Trotsky, or you're not reading Lenin or Trotsky at all because they're just racist old white men. It's like, so that was where we were kind of finding ourselves was, oh, where do we go from here? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think my main like thing that I want to watch out for, because the whole identitarian thing just feels like such a I don't know how to say something briefly about that, but basically, like, I don't think that like the way forward is to like get into these smaller and smaller groupings based on identity. And so for me, that also means like Marxist versus socialist versus syndicalist versus blah, 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 right? Like, and I think that's part of why I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm a socialist, but like, I don't want to make that like what I am, to the point where I'm like not willing to, have conversations with and collaborate with people who don't call themselves that. So that's like one thing I kind of want to just have a much like lighter or like looser hold on whatever word it is that I'm using at the moment, because it's too easy, yeah, to fall into these weird purity spirals, and I think like, yeah, the biggest like I just feel like there's this real irony where, in these social justice spaces, people love to talk about like inclusivity and diversity and blah, blah, blah. But like, if like a working class, like a construction worker came to one of the meetings, like it would be a fucking disaster because people, normal people talking like normal people were like not welcome, and over time, like it became clear that like class was just not an intersection. It just wasn't. It didn't count, right? And almost everyone in these rooms, not me, but everyone else seemed to be getting their master's degrees, right? So yeah, I feel like I have much more of an interest in like, yeah, talking to regular people. Like if we're talking about like building mass movements, we actually need to talk to all sorts of people, and now I almost enjoy like, I don't know, even talking to like a conspiracy theorist, like I had someone deliver furniture to my house and he was like pretty out there with his ideas. But I don't know, it's like I've developed like this earnest curiosity. Like I really want to understand like how did this guy get here? Because there's a lot of people that like they have this sense that like something's wrong, things feel rigged. It feels like they're powerless and they don't have like the understanding of why that is. And so, conspiracy is like another option if you don't want to like, look at the structural reasons why neoliberalism is functioning the way that it is. So yeah, I sent that guy home with a book. And thankfully it didn't say like leftism anywhere on it. So, but it was about the banking system. It's like you don't need a conspiracy. The banking system is so corrupt. Anyway. Yeah.
Well, I want to, while we have you here, touch on some of the stuff that you have done in, I guess maybe we'll just call it the first phase of Recovering Anarchist. I don't know, maybe there were multiple phases, but I know you are kind of preparing for a new phase. And so I'm excited if we can find out any sort of teasers on what's to come. But before we can even touch on stuff like that, let's talk about while you talked about cry bullies, I really want to touch on that article because shout out to you. We did bring it up on stream already when we were doing the Anatomy of a Witch Hunt exegetical that we did together about Nina's cancellation. We talked about your cry bullies piece there because it's really useful. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and kind of break it down for people who are completely unfamiliar with all this stuff. We do often get people in the live chat who are like, this stuff is so outside of my ken. Like, I've never even heard of this stuff. Like, I don't see this stuff in my life. And there are often people that come just from the world of philosophy into theory, and they've never been in an activist space. And so the ubiquity of the cry bullying phenomenon, for instance, and how it's impacted both of you, for instance, is going to be completely lost on a lot of people. It's not common sense. It's not something we should assume. So maybe we could start with that. You could talk a little bit about that, and then maybe Anne could bring in some of the things that she's seen in spaces. We don't have to get too specific if we don't want to, but like just personal experiences do matter. I know people are going to say, "Oh, it's anecdotal." Yeah, well, there's statistics. There's statistics. There's the fact that everybody tunes into this stuff after they've experienced it, and it's obviously selling. So a lot of people must be experiencing something, unless people are just looking for a scapegoat, which is always possible with, Daily Wire people. But no, there is something there. So what is it? And so what kind of brought you to the point where you wrote this cry bullies piece, and maybe what are some of the major signs of a cry bully?
Yeah, the cry bully piece I wrote was in in response to a friend of mine being involved in this organization that was accused um, by this person with a history of lying. And like, I've been around Vancouver long enough to know that about this person, right? But they have a set of identities that is very hot right now. And yeah, and also a lot of people are like worried to get on their bad side. So they're happy to just sort of, at least support this person in public. But yeah, they made this like just really silly and untrue allegation. And my friend's like a new organizer. So they were like, oh my gosh, like, what is this? What am I dealing with? And so that's when I decided to read the piece. And I was really happy to see that cry bully is actually like in the dictionary now. It's in the Oxford English Dictionary, the Collins Dictionary, and the Collins Dictionary defines it as a person who presents himself or herself as a victim of injustice in order to intimidate and manipulate others. So, yeah, I mean, I think probably most people have seen something in their life where someone is sort of using the language of social justice to be an asshole and to control people, or try and ruin their reputation, right? Like maybe they just have like a fight with a friend, and then all of a sudden it becomes about white supremacy or trans misogyny or whatever, and it just like gets bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where it like really it can threaten someone's livelihood, it can threaten their housing, like it can like steal all their friends from them. And I ended up doing a couple live shows with the fucking canceled podcast, I think like a year and a half ago. And Clementine Morgan and Jay Le Soleil are the fucking canceled podcast team. And they've experienced some like really like just unbelievable yeah, stuff as a result of like rumors and games of telephone and kind of everybody getting worked up about, how bad these people are, right? And I think like, yeah, so the term cry bully is really important for us to be able to like spot it, because a lot of people, they're like, oh, like someone says something horrible happened to them, we're going to rally around and support that person. But guess what? People lie about that kind of stuff. And so you got to be careful that you're not like getting manipulated into like, canceling your friend or at least publicly distancing yourself from someone who may not have done anything. So yeah, I'd say I've got some tips on how to spot a cry bully. And I think these can be useful in general for like if someone makes a claim like they experienced a blankist incident, This can kind of help you know how you want to handle it. So, cry bullies make claims that are extremely vague and they employ inflammatory language to disguise the lack of substance. So if you really read closely, you're like, but what did they do? What did the person actually do? Right? Um, Sometimes the claims will be really specific and they'll be so egregious that people are going to say, nobody would lie about that. Um, the claims that they make are completely out of character for the accused person or organization. They often refuse to communicate directly with the accused or a neutral third party. They call every apology insincere. Every practical solution that's offered is bad and wrong somehow. And basically, they don't want resolution. They don't provide the accused any reasonable way to fix things. And it really, over time, becomes clear that they just want to like ruin that person's life, or they want to ruin the organization that they're targeting. And then there's some stuff you can really only see like as a pattern over time, right? Like, is their social life a revolving door? Do they have long-term friends? You know, do they have these volatile relationships that are unstable and short-lived? Do they seem to need mutual aid a lot? By which I mean, are they asking for money a lot? And right after they made some type of accusation, and do they just keep making these accusations over and over again? It's like every organization they join just completely screws them over, just to the point where it's like, that's incredibly unlucky of you that every single person you work with turns out to be just this horrible villain. So yeah, there's that. They usually don't want to just like solve an interpersonal problem in a regular way. They want to like make it this like huge like community campaign that they can direct at someone. Yeah, and I'd say like it's hard to tell from one incident if someone's a cry bully, but over time, as their accusations pile up, you can kind of see what's going on.
And then like the problem with that is the very people who say, "Oh, we care about injustice, about racism, etc." Like by being the cry bully and essentially like crying wolf every time in these like interpersonal, for example, if like there's a bad breakup, this cry bully is probably gonna be like, "Oh my god, they abused me, they were an abuser." Like Lord knows how many times I've seen that word directed at. I've heard other men be like, "Yeah, I was called an abuser," and we just had like a normal relationship fight, you know. It's like you care about victims, you care about abusers, but then by bringing all this attention to yourself, there's like actual women, mostly women, like in terrible relationships that are suffering from abuse. Now that word basically means nothing because we're throwing it around for every single thing. Same with white supremacy, same with racism, same with transphobia, homophobia. It's like these are real problems that I think all of us here like care deeply about in treating everyone fairly and equally and making sure that everyone has, you know, the right to live and exist how they want. But then when it's like every little thing is an instance of white supremacy, and the word white supremacy, for example, it doesn't actually mean anything anymore. No one takes that seriously. So yeah, when a cry bully is using these words willy-nilly, it's like that word doesn't mean anything anymore. That's a big problem, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love like sometimes I put up questions on my Instagram and kind of get like anonymous stories from people about what they've seen in regards to this type of thing. And, you know, one person said like their friend was calling their mother abusive for not letting them smoke weed in the house, for example. Like this, there's just like a real, I don't know, things have gotten real strange. You know, there's this real safetyism going on where like, ooh, if I feel uncomfortable or awkward, um, or mad, then I must have been abused or like mistreated somehow. Whereas like that's not how things work. Sometimes you just don't like someone. Sometimes you break up and it sucks, and that doesn't mean that person is a monster who should, never be able to date again. And yeah, I think like losing perspective on that, like you said, just really starts to trivialize and kind of obscure like actual abuse and like really significant issues around racism or sexism that really need our attention. And I think that's kind of where the right loses me as well, is it's like they seem to think like, oh, like racism is over, right? And everyone just needs to like get over it. And I don't agree with that. But I do think that we have to recognize that false accusations get made or that people exaggerate. And that's just a human thing that we do. And we have to be able, I mean, when I was a social justice warrior, I wasn't even allowed to talk about racism, right? I wasn't allowed to like form an opinion on it. All I could do is sort of like act really weird around people of color and just like just like I don't know, defer, which yeah, I wasn't that good at actually.
You're like young Robin DiAngelo came across like this fork in the path, and you're the version that decided to go the other way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's this one Instagram account where I'm like, this is my alternative future that I didn't take, where I'm like basically a trauma influencer, And yeah, thank the Lord that that's not the path I chose.
I don't know if you either of you have seen the chat. Don't look at it. I'll always filter that for you all. But Dangerous Maybe, aka Mikey, in the house. He'll be on actually for the Catrone conversation here as the sort of keynote event of the day. But he said, one of my Zoomer friends got canceled by her group of woke friends for the crime of abusively throwing a notebook across the room while drunk. Unforgivable. And now I know Mikey, and he told me this story, and I met the person when I was in Kansas City, and she said that they called her boss. They called
Yeah.
her family. They actually messaged her, not close friends, but they messaged her acquaintances and were talking about how violent and abusive she had been. And so it's like, I guess I want to ask you both, when people say people don't get canceled, look at J.K. Rowling and uh, uh, Dave Chappelle, like they're still around, like they didn't get canceled, they're still around. What do you think people are getting at? What is the sort of, and do they have a point, or is that kind of missing the point? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's really dumb to say that. Like, of course, millionaires like will like be okay in a sense, but most people who get canceled are just like normal people, working class people, low income people, who are in very precarious situations. And I personally know people that are hounded out of job after job after job. Every time they get into a relationship, that person is, targeted and told to break up with them. Like there are people that are driven to the brink of suicide. There are people that commit suicide because this is like serious social violence. I helped out with the cancellation in about 2012, and that person developed post-traumatic stress disorder from our treatment of them. Officially diagnosed, and still to this day, like struggles to make friends and to trust that like they're not going to lose everything again because they did. They lost everything. They had to leave town. They had no friends, And so yeah, this idea that like holding up like some of the richest celebrities and saying cancellation isn't real is like obviously just a really dumb argument. But I think it's also just it's this weird moral argument. I think that's like what's really behind it, right? Is it's like if someone's a bad person, then they deserve whatever is coming to them. And like that's I think the scariest thing of the cancellation phenomenon to me is like there's no punishment too severe once someone's evil. And if that's like how you think of the world as good people and evil people, yeah, it's really disturbing what you'll do to people who fall from grace. And also anyone at any time can fall from grace and become an evil person. No one is safe, even if they're trying to act in such a way that they'll, get to stay on the good side. I can tell you, no one is safe.
Yeah, I saw on your like list of resources for people kind of recovering anarchists, or that list of resources for people who want to explore leftist ideas outside of this SJW ism. You had a blanking Jonathan Haidt and Greg, George Lukanoff's book, The Coddling of the American Mind, on there, which is one that just a couple of the things that you said in the last 20 minutes. I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me of that book. That reminds me of that book, and like the three untruths that people, young people, college students, and then particularly like college administration will take up as kind of these acting forces and how everyone should behave, and one of them being, the world is a constant battle between good versus evil. Yeah, if someone is deemed evil, or if someone is deemed Hitler, for example, like as bad as Hitler, well, anything's justifiable. It's like, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump by any means, but the amount of people I've seen just in the last few days with a second assassination attempt, and they're like, man, they shouldn't have missed this time. Like, it's like, why are we wishing literal death on a person? That's not a good look for any side, but it's because, we've equated him to Adolf Hitler. Even my own like critical thinking father, bless his heart, who's like, I'll talk to anyone. I'll be friends with conservatives. Like, thinks of Donald Trump as equivalent to like Adolf Hitler. And so it's like, yeah, of course anything's justifiable when a person is transphobic, racist, white supremacist, Nazi, XYZ thing. And yeah, it harms like actual people, and we just have this major problem of dehumanizing people. We're so quick and easy to just dehumanize. And it's like, I think of our friend Nina Power, who went through a very public cancellation, and yeah, right now she's doing fine, she's doing great, like she seems very happy and content. It's like, she's bankrupt. That, even though it hasn't necessarily affected her so much emotionally, like that's just painful to have to deal with. And I always think back to like even just the time that she had a boiling hot coffee thrown on her. And it's like, why, like what happened socially that that's okay to do to anyone under the name of kindness and equality? Like you're being not only a cry bully, but you're being an actual bully, whether it's online or in real life. Like you're being violent, you're being mean, like you're being a bully. So yeah, it's just interesting, and it affects real people.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like when people say like, oh, that person's still alive, cancellation doesn't work. It's like, do you actually like, did someone need to go and like live in a hole in the ground for you to, or do they actually need to be dead for you to accept that cancellation has affected them? But even then, if someone does kill themselves, they'll say, oh, they were mentally ill, or oh, it was for other reasons, right? So it's like, so often people will be like, people in a cancellation, like attempting one, are like, oh, all that we're asking is for this person to completely disappear off the internet, stop going anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and someone might have spent like 20 years building their career online. And to say, like, I feel like there's no, like, labor and labor rights and workers' rights is just like nowhere on the radar in these conversations. Like, because we've fought, like, the left has fought very hard for a long time for people to not get fired for arbitrary reasons. And so if all of a sudden, like, a shitty tweet is enough to get you fired, even if it has literally nothing to do with your job, like, that's bad, you guys. And like, that could happen to you too. Do we want that to be the standard, that like any employer at any time can like use a sentence online to take away your health care, your pension, and like put you on the street potentially? Like, it's wild.
Well, and I think one of the important things to point out with someone like Nina, people will say, well, but she was left. She's not even left anymore. Now she's trying to do this non-political thing. And for a while, was researching the right and is involved, does stuff, has conversations with people who are there, on the right. And well, it's kind of okay because you see she was a conservative all along, is kind of, or she's conservative now, and it's kind of like, well, there's two internets, right? There's an internet where it's okay if you were canceled, and you can kind of say whatever you want, and there's some reprehensible people there, but also you can disagree with people, but also that's that internet. And of course, there's stuff on that side of the internet we don't like, and then there's, but the other side, it just says, oh well, it's all made up, and you see Dave Chappelle still kicking, so who cares? And it's like, well, if Dave Chappelle, okay, let's just say that because he's rich, it doesn't matter. Because he got, sure, people should be allowed to say what they want. Okay, well, even in that case, isn't the people who are able to make careers off of uh tweeting about him, for instance, and we're able to, isn't that something that trickles into our immediate life? Like the people who believe in platforming so much and the power of influence and normalization and the Overton window, well, isn't with someone like him, aren't people normalizing? Oh, well, it's okay actually, as long as they're considered privileged by whatever arbitrary standard we're currently using at the time, whatever's in the moment. I'm gonna bring Ryan inside, and then we're about to close out, and then we'll bring on the next guests. And before we bring on those next guests, um, here, Ryan. Oh, look at this boy. He's a sweet boy. You guys see him playing with the puppy? He likes to play with the puppy.
Oh, yeah.
But so okay, but let me put him down, then I gotta go get Thomas. But I want to give you both an opportunity to say some closing things. Of course, this is just the beginning of a conversation, and it's a kind of the public facing side of a conversation that's already to some degree going on. Most of the time, we stick to critical media theory because we want to understand the medium and its conditions of possibility for sort of fostering or reifying or somehow creating or bolstering this deadlock at the end of history. And I kind of want to just say that what I take to be the most crucial thing that you said here is, for people who care about large scale structural change, which would mean political and economic structural change, talking about the actual economy and people's lived existences and their possibilities, if the movement that wants positive large scale structural change is simultaneously associated with the people who are going to celebrate people having their lives ruined over whisper campaigns or call out posts, I can't believe we're still here. It's been a decade. We've seen it. Some people are still in denial. They've managed to avoid it, but it's going on. And to this, you said you're going to do this journey publicly. You're going to, and maybe you can say in close some stuff about this last phase of, or this new phase of recovering anarchists. I just wanted to say props on doing it publicly, because one person who was originally going to be on the stream never actually got scheduled because he believed things and then he changed his position. And so we were going to have a conversation about why he's changed his position over time. And then he got kind of cold feet and was like, actually, I don't want to do that. I haven't thought it through well enough. I got this other position I changed like 10 years ago. I'll talk about that. And then we're like, cool, okay. And then we'll have that conversation instead. But then a few days later, he's like, actually, I don't want to talk about that. I haven't thought about that enough either yet. And it's like, dude, if you can't have a conversation, how, as an independent scholar, someone who's supposedly outside of the legacy institutions, if you can't talk with people and kind of work through things and be imperfect and kind of be in a space of like, I'm still figuring things out and this is why I don't believe that, but I'm also not sure and I've got my reservations. If you can't do that, can you really think? And if that person can't really think, then how many people in our lives are afraid to talk And if they're afraid to talk, then how are they going to think without just spending all their time shadow boxing specters and imagining what would happen if they were to express themselves? And so before you say your closing thoughts and kind of tie it into your new phase with Recovering Anarchist, everyone should go subscribe on Substack, of course. And do you have any closing thoughts?
Just my closing thoughts. I want to give the floor to you, Kier. Just that, like, it's a weird social situation that we find ourselves in as people who, like, genuinely care about making the world a better place. I know that's why I went to college. I originally was going to study political science and switched to sociology. It's like, I want to make the world better. And then it just seems like the mainstream loudest options are not the way forward. And so it's just awesome to be around people in Theory Underground who, even though we all don't agree on everything politically, who are open to having the discussion on how we can make the world better without instantly dehumanizing others, without instantly shutting people down, having some thick skin and giving people the benefit of the doubt and our grace and kindness. And so I love your project. I'm glad you're here. And yeah, close us out.
Oh, thanks, Anne. Yeah, I feel like it's really tempting for leftists to kind of distance themselves from all of this kind of purity stuff that's going on, but I think it's like important to remember like the purges of communist parties, right? And like struggle sessions, like there's a legacy, there's Joe Freeman was writing about trashing, which is pretty much canceling. I think that essay was from the 70s. So yeah, it's like this is going to keep showing up in different forms. Some parts of it are really new because we're all online, but I helped cancel someone before it was online and we still ruined that person's life. So, I think trying to put that in context can be important. But yeah, I think the thinking in public thing is like really central to my project. And it's part of why I picked the name Recovering Anarchist that I did, because I'm in transition and maybe I always will be. I think Recovering Anarchist gives people an idea of like where I've been and, whether they can maybe relate to that and might want to kind of join me on that. But yeah, where I'm going isn't clear. And that's like incredibly exciting, I think, and I think like in my social justice years, like I barely created anything. I barely wrote anything because every time I went to do it, like I would have these like contradictory rules in my head and I couldn't ever like sort them all out. So, I think, part of the recovery for me is like, yeah, being on live stream, and I'm sure I will say stupid things. I'm sure I'll change my mind about things. But like that needs to be okay. We should normalize thinking out loud. And yeah, not pigeonholing someone based on something they said 10 years ago.
Perfect. And with that, we'll close this out. Thanks, everybody. We'll be right back with Cadell, last of Philosophy Portal, and Benjamin Studebaker right after this. Take care, Kier.
Bye.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of the situation that short-circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory.
You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run a review of books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Timenergy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down Seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey Seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Žižek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and ultimately the whole history of philosophy.
We're trying to build like this ongoing seminar, right? And that's what I really like about this thing, where, you know, if I'm teaching a main text, that's something I got to focus on. I got to really, but the seminar thing, we can do this stuff all the time, where we dive deeper into concepts, we dive deeper into certain, you know, sections of books or whatever, and we can really do this nuanced stuff.
I think that there's probably no better way for us to accelerate our learning in these areas than by slipstreaming Mikey. And that has been my belief for years and years and years now. It's official. You're able to help out. You're able to get involved. You're able to benefit directly from liberating him from wage labor. Get on it right now. Do it. Just go. Stop what you're doing. Go click the button, subscribe. This is what you do. Subscribe to him. If you're already signed up for the ongoing Theory Underground seminars, then that's the ones that I do with my wife, Anne. Though that's getting an upgrade, which means that I will be doing one session per month that is just me, and then I will also be doing the ones with Anne, which are a crash course in sociology, anthropology, the social sciences, and ultimately Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Bourdieu, imminently critiquing pop psychology, sociology, self-help, and ultimately the doxa of our time. But if you would like to be a subscriber to both Mikey's seminar and the seminar that the Snellgrove McKerrachers are doing, then the best way is to become a Tier 4 subscriber, or you can be a Tier 2 subscriber to each of us. The reason this matters is because Tier 2 is like pretty much the best bang for your buck. It gives you huge discounts on all of the courses that we do. But if you can't afford it, Tier 4 is amazing because it gives you Tier 3 access at both Mikey's seminar and ours.
Finally, not everybody has time to be part of these ongoing research seminars, and they just want to fund the paid content for the YouTube and podcast. And so thank you so much to our patrons over at Patreon. They're the ones funding all the free stuff, so big thank you to Bert, Marilyn, Carl, Sahil, Zozandra, Nikolai, Darian, Tyler, and Mandeep, and all the other wonderful patron people. Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. Thank you so much to all of you patrons and also to the special subscribers and the paying subscribers. Oh my god! It's just so awkward. Thank you, Patreon. Patrons. Thank you, okay. And to all the other wonderful patrons. Thank you so much, all you patrons. And also a special thanks to the subscribers on the YouTube side, as well as the paying subscribers over at Substack. Why can't we do this? Fuck. You guys. Please. Just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making this bullshit possible. Thank you to the subscribers. You do it. You did so good. Thanks, guys.